Hello, this is Mrs. Brown at Research Triangle High School. The purpose of this video is to talk about some of the different types of plots, that is, the way that an author structures a story to create certain effects. So just to review a little bit, a plot is one of the elements of fiction. Simply speaking, it's what happens in the story. It's the sequence of actions and events, what we think of as the beginning, the middle, and the end. It's how the author decided to tell the story and how they put those events together. Now, a couple ways to think about plots are as linear or nonlinear. The word linear here, you'll notice the word line is in there. A plot that's linear is a plot that's going to go pretty much in a straight line. Sometimes these are referred to as sequential or chronological because things happen in an order one after the other, or chronological, they're told in the order from the beginning and middle and the end. So the events are told to the reader in the order in which they occurred, so everything kind of moves in that straight line, and that's known as a linear plot. Now, sometimes an author plays around with this and you have a non-linear plot. This is when events are not in the order that they occurred, but some other way of telling the story that the writer chooses. And a writer might do this for the purpose of creating some kind of mystery, tension, or surprise. Now, there are a couple different kinds of non-linear plot devices. One is the flashback, and that's pretty much what it sounds like. A flashback is a scene within the story. So it interrupts the regular sequence of events. You're going along telling the story, and then somebody starts and says, wait a second, and suddenly you're hearing about events that happened earlier in time. So it's this flashback to something from the past that interrupts the flow of the regular events of the story. That's a flashback. Another type of nonlinear plot is using foreshadowing. A foreshadowing is when the author shadows or gives hints or clues about things that will happen later on in the story. And this creates some kind of tension and suspense because you know something's going to happen, but you don't know how or how it's going to get there. A great example of this was the poster that was done for the original Star Wars reboot. And you have young Anakin Skywalker here, but you see the shadow of what he will become, of Darth Vader right there. So it's literally foreshadowing what the little boy will grow up to be. And a third type of nonlinear plot line is what's known as a frame story, or a story within a story. Very often we begin at one point and then we'll flash back to previous events, but then we come back at the end to the original frame. So for example, in To Kill a Mockingbird, we actually start with the adult Scout, and then she starts going back to the stories of what happened over these summers with her father in the town when she was growing up. And then once again, we end with the modern day Scout reflecting on everything that's happened. So that would be a frame for the story. Life of Pi is another example of a frame story. We meet the adult Pi, and then he does in a series of flashbacks what happened to him on the ocean with the tiger, and then we end again with the adult writer and with the adult Pi. So when you're taking your final exam and you're reading through the passages, one of the things you can really do is look at the structure of the story. Does the point of view seem to shift back in time? Now, it may or may not do that within a short passage, but it is one important thing that you can notice as you're doing the reading. And then start thinking, how does this choice of a linear, a straight line part telling of the story, or some type of the non-linear plot device, such as foreshadowing, flashback, or framing, how does that relate to the theme and to the overall effect that the author is trying to achieve? And that's another way that you can look at discussing what an author does with a piece of writing.